Well, welcome to Soul Strings. This is an all-new podcast that we're doing, and we're going to be interviewing musicians and singers. And I always like that when they said musicians and singers. Are we separate? Are we, do we? I think I know how to play a little bit, don't you?
There's jokes about lead singers. You've heard them all.
Yes, we have. Well, today I got a special guest, Ed Callison. I know a lot of you know who he is, and he's been in the music business for quite a long time. So today we're going to talk a little bit about one of your upcoming shows that you have, and it's one of the many tribute bands that you're in.
Couple.
And it's called Pink Houses.
Pink House USA. It's funny because Pink Houses, there was an East Coast band tribute that was called Pink Houses. And so I looked around, kept looking, and I thought, well, Freebird USA, we had to make that because there was other Freebirds. So we made it Pink Houses USA so we weren't the same name.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So how many guys are in the band?
7-piece band.
7-piece.
We've got drums, Ron Kraser. We've got George Vasquez on bass. Kyle Work on keyboard, Darren Hank guitar, Chris Nacarado guitar, and we've got Ron Vince on violin. We've got a couple other subs as well, Xavier Koenig on violin, so 7-piece band, and I'm just a singer.
You're just the singer?
Just a singer.
Well, I know you play instruments as well.
I grew up playing drums. I still do a lot of percussion in my duos on the weekends, congas, bongas. Grew up a singing drummer. Don Henley was always kind of my idol because he could sing and play at the same time. And so I learned that, and my brother Richie, we played together for a long time, and he started singing and playing bass, and he went his way, I went mine, and now he's in LA and I'm still here in St. Louis. But yeah, it was about 2 years ago I started talking to Ron Kraser and both Darren about, are you guys interested in doing a John Cougar Mellencamp tribute? It's just something that I always enjoyed his music and thought nobody else is doing it, right? And they were both in, so we started the audition process, which was not easy, especially with violinists, accordion players. We had a couple of polka players come in, and it just was not a fit.
So, I'd love to have seen that.
Yeah.
Fan interview.
Oh yeah, because there's jokes about that. Guy got his car broke into. They had an accordion in it. He came back to the car, was broken. There was 7 of them. They left 6 more because it's such an instrument that's kind of they make jokes about it. But it's a beautiful instrument, right? But we decided we can get that sound on the keyboards.
Right.
So Kyle Work puts in a lot of the extra sounds that you would generally get from an accordion. And it's not like the accordion's on every song. But the violinist, we found a great violinist who had been for years with the Symphony and the Fox and the Muni.
Wow.
And so it's a big part, even though it's not on every song. We make it on every song because it adds. It's just the sound of the violin.
Do you find that challenging when it's trying to find these certain musicians? How challenging is that?
It is, because here's 2 reasons why. Number 1, you want somebody that's really good, that can do the material, and 2, that's available.
Right.
Because so many of my friends, like myself, are in a lot of bands, and Freebird was one. I mean, Freebird USA, we've got 1 show this year because everybody's in so many bands. Pink House, we've got 16 shows. So I found people that were available, Gordon, which was more important than anything. And they're good, but they're available.
Gotta have them show up.
They're available.
It's pretty important, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, it is.
So tell me a little bit about this Pink Houses tribute band. That you got a show coming up. You got one coming up first. That's coming up.
The first one this year. We had 15 shows last year. We've got 16 right now this year. First one, April 5th, at the Miners Theater in Collinsville, Illinois. Beautiful theater. Have you been there?
I don't know, but I think we're being arrested.
Oh, God. Let's go.
They found us, Ed. Out of all these years of hiding, they figured out where we were.
In a speakeasy.
In a speakeasy. We are at the speakeasy right here in Cottleville, Missouri. Brand new speakeasy, which is awesome. But so,
beautiful place.
But it was challenging finding musicians.
It was. And then once we got the group together last year, again, we did 15 shows this year. Our first one, April 5th, Miners Theater in Collinsville.
My birthday.
Beautiful theater. Happy birthday coming up. You need to come to the show then. We'll get you a ticket. So 1918 is when it was actually opened. It's been restored. I did a show with another couple of bands, an ABBA tribute and a Bee Gees tribute. We did a show there about 3 months ago. And I was blown away because I've done shows at the Lincoln Theater, which is nice.
Grew up in that area.
Okay.
So I know Lincoln Theater well.
So to me, Lincoln Theater is beautiful, but this one is just, it's so well put together, and it's run so well by the husband and wife that run it. It seats about 460 people. We're hoping to sell it out. And yeah, that's April 5th, 7:30.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll do a 2-hour, 2-set show.
I love the old theaters.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's one over in East St. Louis that's been tore down for years and years and years. But every time I drive by it, I would have loved to have seen it in its heyday.
What was that called? Do you remember?
You know what? I don't remember. Greg Bishop told me about it.
Okay.
And I've never, you know, I've tried to look up old pictures of it and everything. But
Sure.
East St. Louis in the heyday was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
place, you know.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But
that's the Illinois side.
Yeah.
Our second show this year will be April 26th at the Diamond Music Hall for the Missouri folks right here in St. Peter's. So we're looking forward to doing that show as well. We've got an opener. It's a School of Rock kids band
oh, that's cool.
that are really good, and I'm afraid they may outplay us. they're that
Should be
good.
the headliner, huh?
They're that good. Raised on Radio. They'll open the show on April
great
26th
name.
at Diamond. Yeah.
What a great name.
Raised on Radio.
Yeah.
They're all between 18 and I think 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many shows again do you have coming up?
16 this year.
16.
Besides those two in April, we've got right next door at Frankie Mark's. We'll be there May 31st.
May 31st. That was a
We'll
great
be at
venue
the
outside.
Legacy Park right across the street. They do the Tuesday night concert series during the summer. We've got a show coming up there, and I believe it's June 22nd. But you can go on Pink House USA on Facebook. I post everything. Ed Callison Music on Facebook. I post everything as well.
Awesome.
Best place to find our full schedule.
Well, I appreciate you coming in talking about Pink Houses.
Yeah.
And we're going to want to go see a couple of those shows. I'm going
Yeah.
to have to try and make the birthday one for sure.
Absolutely.
But I thank you for being here and talking about Pink Houses.
Absolutely.
And, we're going to talk a little bit more. All right, we're back with Ed Callison. We were talking about Pink Houses just a few minutes ago. And we're going to get a little in-depth. And what inspired you? What got you started in music when you were young, Ed?
You know, I was 7, 8. I liked playing drums. I didn't have a drum set. I had a little toy set. And my dad said, listen, you know, you work and put a little money into buying a set. I had a newspaper route, right? Mm-hmm. So I started saving my money, and I went to Nash Music in St. Charles, which is no longer, and bought my first gold Sparkle Rogers drum set. And it was a brother group. My older two brothers, Mike and Bob, along with Richie, who you know. Richie played guitar. My brother Bobby played bass. My brother Mike played keyboards. And our parents supported us to be able to rehearse in the dining room of a small 1,500 square foot home in St. Charles, which it was loud. And we played a few gigs around as a brother group. And then after a couple of years, my two older brothers went in the Air Force. And then Richie and I got together with John Gillespie and started our own band. But that's kind of how it all started. Never took any vocal lessons as a singer, but did start in the marching band at Bar Mayo Grade School, which is where I went to grade school. Dushan High, my freshman year, played in the marching band. I was kind of a nerd and an athlete. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Weird combination. So my sophomore year, I quit the band and started playing football and basketball. But then continued the music with Richie and John, and they kind of went their way, and I went mine for several years. I quit. My first marriage, she didn't really like me playing music, so I quit playing music for about 12 years until I met my wife, Nanette, back in '92, and I started playing music again because she supported it, just like my parents did.
Now, you say your parents supported it. Were they musicians as well? Did they have any music?
My father, no, they were great dancers. My father played, and I learned this later on, the xylophone of all things. Wow. He played the xylophone. But they loved music, especially country.
Yeah.
So growing up, I listened to a lot of country music. I mean, Hank Sr. and Porter Wagoner, and Conway Twitty, and all the great stuff, yeah. And there's good stuff today, but you know, I really like the 90s, 80s and 90s country. But they weren't really that musical, but they love music.
And they supported you.
They supported us, yeah.
So growing up, you got into music. Your family was into it. Who was your biggest musical influence?
Oh, wow. Back in the day, it was the Monkees.
I heard you say Don Henley earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, Don Henley, but early on, the 60s, we're talking the Monkees, Paul Revere and the Raiders, stuff that you would see on TV on the video shows. But later on, yeah, Eagles, Rod Stewart, Bad Company, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin naturally, Rolling Stones, the Beatles, all of the above. And then country naturally, as I got into more country, it was Mark Chestnut and Travis Tritt and just all the great 80s and 90s country.
I never knew that about you. I never knew you were into country so
I love
much.
country music. In 92 is when I met my wife, Nanette. We were spending 3 nights a week at Nick Nixon's on Lindbergh.
I remember that.
Country dancing. And my wife, she was a cheerleader with the Cardinals when they were here in St. Louis, the football Cardinals. She's a great dancer, quick learner, and we picked up country music dancing, and we're doing it 3 nights a week during, I guess, our courtship, if you will. But to this day, we still love country music. Yeah.
That's incredible. Nick Nixon. So,
Nick Nixon.
all right, you're getting ready to go on stage. Show is about ready to start. Do you have any type of rituals or anything that's like superstitious that you've got to do all the time? The lips, yeah.
Little vocal things, kind of like you always probably did. But no, really just trying to not be nervous for one, but I think everybody gets a little bit of butterflies.
I was going to say, you still get nervous?
Right before, it all starts. But once you get out there,
it goes away.
It goes away.
It goes away.
The energy just kind of takes you. It's a high,
Yeah.
You did it for years, man.
So you've performed quite a lot. We talked about all the different tribute bands that you're doing. Tell me a little bit about some of the different tribute bands you're doing besides Pink Houses.
Sure, absolutely. We've got a yacht rock band called Captain Ed
My favorite music.
and the Catamarans.
Yep.
We've got 6 shows this year. We just did a show at the Westport Social weekend before last. It was our first big show this year. We did a show at Diamond Music Hall last year. It's an 8-piece band, full band. It's not just a 4-piece yacht rock band like you see around, the nation. This is a full-blown saxophone, guitar, keyboards, female singer, Stacey Rios, great singer, John Shanahan, Kevin Lehman on guitar, Joe Gilbert on bass, Mike Powers on saxophone, and our drummer Zoe. It's just a great band, and it's all that great stuff that people love, and they know every word to every song. So as singers, we got to know every word. Otherwise, people are like, hey, that wasn't the right lyric.
I remember I had to fill in with Contagious when Bob Fox was still alive with us.
Yeah.
And I couldn't memorize anything. It's like took me forever. So I did the whole video screen, and then even the stars are doing that now.
Oh yeah, no.
They got the the monitors in front of them and the.
It's a normal thing. I was out in Vegas 4 years ago, right before COVID hit, 5 years ago, and at the MGM for the showcase of the Aerosmith. Right there, they had a 2-week show there, and I'm right in the second row with friends, and he goes out on this walkway. And I look on the back wall, about 20 by 20, all the lyrics just going. Somebody's running the pedal for him.
Teleprompters.
We're talking about Steven Tyler, man.
Hey, you know what? We forget stuff as we get older. It's like your brain goes into a brain fog. Let me tell you, as I get older, there's things that me and Kelly were sitting on the couch one night and we were watching a thing and we're trying to think of Kevin Costner's name. We could remember John Dutton, but we couldn't remember Kevin Costner's
Yellowstone.
Yeah. It's crazy how the brain goes like crazy like that when you get older.
But I've got friends right here in St. Louis that use monitor screens. And you know what? It looks like a monitor, so who cares?
Who cares?
As long as you don't want to give them the wrong lyrics. It's better to have, the right lyrics than to know that, hey, he's using a monitor, so what?
Yeah.
I think McCartney does too.
So here's a big question that me and Kelly always think about when we think about you and Annette. We always ask ourselves, what kind of vitamins are these people taking? Because you were here Wednesday with us, and then Thursday night you were out again at the Jazz Club.
Blue Strawberry.
And then Friday night you were out again, I think.
I was performing.
And were you out Saturday?
Saturday night performing. Well, I was out all day at Mardi Gras
That's
in
right.
the Central West End or downtown. And then that night I played the Quarry.
Were you out Sunday?
We went out to Newtown. We invited you.
That's right. That's right. We had family over.
Yeah,
and then here
yeah.
you are today.
You know, we take multiples. We take some supplements. We don't really drink much. I've never really been a big drinker or a smoker. Drink a ton of water. We try to eat right. And, you know, it's just, I think you take care of the machine takes care of you. So there's no really big secret, if you will. I wanted to mention, too, when you said the other tributes, another one I just joined last year is the ABBA and Bee Gees tribute. We did a show at the Miners Theater. We're doing several shows this year, the Chesterfield Amphitheater. We're doing some other shows around town, Diamond Music Hall. That's a fun show. My wife doesn't like ABBA, but once I
I'm with her there.
once I learned the material, oh my gosh, the songs grew on me, and now I love that just as much as the Bee Gees.
Wow.
But a lot of harmonies, and I'm all about harmonies. And there's another band
I am too.
I'm working on
We've
right
lost
now.
that art in music.
Oh, let me tell you.
Of harmonization and vocals, and it's like
And people love hearing
we didn't
it.
have all that. We didn't have the vocal tuners. What do they call them? The pitch. We had to
Changes.
sing.
Oh,
We had to
yeah.
actually sing. You
Oh,
know?
yeah.
So
A lot of the recordings today are using that too, but you know I'm not a big fan, and
neither.
some people are. But so that band, both of those bands, it's one band, but it's three different singers: Jason Nelson, Johnny Cruzy.
Johnny, boy, Johnny.
it's-
I've known Johnny for quite a long time, and he just gets better and better.
He does. He really does.
Yeah.
And then there's one other band I'm working on, which I can't talk a whole lot about just yet, but it's got to do with the Eagles.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So, out of all the venues, you've played a lot of venues. What's your favorite venue you ever played?
Probably one of the favorites is the St. Charles Family Arena. In 2019, December, Freebird USA, we did a show and a headline there. And it was a lot of work because you have to get people to there, to the venue. So we'd pass out a lot of tickets all over town. We had over 5,000 people, and that had to be one of my favorite shows. Have you played that stage?
No,
It's just
I quit
it's,
before then.
it's kind of a mind blow because I'm used to singing in front of 200 or 300 people, or maybe
it's a lot different atmosphere.
maybe 1,000.
Yeah.
O'Fallon Jammin' was 2,000 last summer. We did Legacy Park. There's usually about 800 people there, but when you get 5,000 plus, that's a big stage, and I got a little bit nervous, but
Yeah,
the show
I can
went on.
understand that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
we
I
had
got-
an opener, and
Yeah. I got one last question for you.
yeah.
So you've been doing this a long time. You've been playing in bands. You got started when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back and tell your younger self, give your younger self some advice, what would that be?
Practice, 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 because there's nothing worse than showing up for a gig and sounding terrible. Either the guitarist not knowing the notes, bass, the drummer not knowing the beat, singer not knowing the lyrics or the way the lyrics should be sang. I think practice is the most important thing. And with Pink House USA, and I'm glad you asked this, for the last year and a half, excepting for the last month and a half because our bass player had knee surgery, we were practicing every week. Every week on a Tuesday, Wednesday for 2.5 hours. That's how we got tight. And that's, in my opinion, the best way. Because if you just rehearse once, twice a month, and you got big shows coming up, you're not going to sound as good as you were if you did it every week. Because the more you play it, the better it gets.
Exactly. No, good advice. I do have one other question, so
Okay.
I lied. So, is there something musically that you haven't done in your life that you would love to do?
Well, yeah, naturally. And I am doing it this summer. First time to play at the Chesterfield Amphitheater. It's been on my bucket list for a while. We're playing with ABBA and the Bee Gees tribute. Other than that, Madison Square Garden. bigger venues.
Yeah.
You know, it's great doing the weekends. I do the duos at all the wineries and next door at wine cellars and, you know, just all the wineries all around town. And I enjoy that because what we do, especially if I'm with Stephen Winters, we take requests the whole 3 hours.
And people are sitting around chatting and they're talking and you're kind of there, but they're kind of like. But then when you're in an arena setting, that's a whole different setting because you're the focus. You
That's
know?
right. That's right. Otherwise, you're
all eyes on you.
You're kind of background music at a lot of venues. I know we played at the Barrel House on Friday Night Ballwin. Great little venue. But at first, people are talking, tasting the whiskey, and you know, just socializing, right?
Right.
And then as they get a little more inebriated, they start dancing and getting more into the music. And that's kind of how the wineries are as well. But you're right. The bigger venues, bigger shows, the tribute shows, people are there to listen and watch. And naturally, we all love that.
You got to leave me with one last story.
Okay.
I want to hear one of the craziest stories from playing. You got to give me a good one.
Oh, boy. Well,
I talked to Chuck from Boyfriend. They got kicked out of the Lake of the Ozarks. Couldn't come back. So you got to do.
They got kicked out?
They got kicked out.
Well, we were doing a show, this was 4 or 5 years ago with Freebird USA. It was a bike run up in Iowa. And that kind of tells you a little bit right there. They're fun-loving people. But I think it was the second last song, and people were moving forward. And some of the ladies did not have a top on. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And Mike looked at me and says, it's a biker run. I'm like, okay. So I kept concentrating, looking out to the distance where people had clothes on.
Lord, that would make you miss a few words.
You know, biker people live a different life. And hey, they're good people. It's just some of them had too much fun maybe.
Yeah.
Or just, I don't know, exhibitionists.
Wow.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy.
Hey, well, thanks for coming today. Thanks for sitting with me. And
Man,
thanks for
having me,
you.
as always. Appreciate you.